If you've spent decades saving into your RRSPs, the last thing you want to do is hand a big chunk of it back to the taxman. But this is exactly what's happening to many Canadians who retire with seven-figure RRSPs. Not because they're doing anything wrong, but simply because they either don't have a plan or their advisor hasn't built them a plan that factors in how to draw down those RRSPs tax efficiently. I'm a retirement income planner and I work with people in this exact position, oftentimes in their 50s or 60s, sitting on over $1 million in their RRSPs, not realizing that tax deferral isn't the same thing as tax-free. And without a plan, they could end up paying hundreds of thousands more in unnecessary taxes and could lose out on their old age security benefit along the way. So in this video, we're going to walk you through a real life example of one of our clients, Sarah, who is widowed and has $1.5 million in her RRSPs. We're going to show you the exact strategies we implemented to save her over $800,000. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to know how to keep more of your retirement income in your pocket. All right, so as mentioned, we have Sarah. She's 55 today, recently widowed and retired. She has $1.5 million in her RRSPs, $150,000 in her tax-free savings account, and $200,000 in her non-registered account. As far as CPP is concerned, she planned on taking it at 60, and she was on track to receive just over $1,000 per month. For old age security, she was going to be receiving about $800 per month, and she planned to take that at 65, so 10 years down the road. Her late husband also had a defined benefit pension plan that is paying her $40,000 per year, or as we can see here, just over $3,300 per month. She owned her own home worth $600,000 in Manitoba, so we're using Manitoba tax rates in this example, had no debt against it, and her expense level was sitting at about $5,700 per month. And with that, we're going to increase it by 2.5% every year just to keep up with the cost of inflation. So with this amount, she felt she could do all the things that she wanted to do in retirement and didn't feel like she needed any more funds. Now, as far as what her picture looks like today, she is in a very good position. She is in no danger of running out of money. And as we can see here, her plan is over 150% funded, and she'd be leaving a net estate after tax of $4.5 million. So let's take a look at her net worth over time and walk through what her withdrawal strategy was going to be. So here we have her net worth, and this green bar indicates the value of her home, just going up in value along the way. So we're never having to sell it to fund her retirement. We have her registered assets, so her RRSPs in blue, TFSAs in yellow, and non-registered accounts in brown. So as far as her withdrawal strategy is concerned, she has the pension income coming in, so that's $40,000 per year. And to allow her to spend $5,700 per year, she's going to make a withdrawal from her non-registered account. So we can see this happening over the next number of years. So here we are in 2026, pension income is $40,000, and we're also making a withdrawal from the non-registered account for $34,000. After holding some tax, this is giving her the funds to spend that $5,700 per month, or roughly $68,000 per year. So this repeats itself over the next number of years until she turns 60. CPP then starts, and if we look at the following year, she's getting a full year of CPP, which is about $12,000. And also at that point, she's used up all of her non-registered funds, so she's now starting to dip into her TFSA. Her reasoning for this is that she did not want to pay tax and knew that if she made a withdrawal from her RRSPs, it would be taxable. So she'd be trying to keep her tax bill as low as she could. So she keeps repeating this process until she hits 65, then old age security kicks in. And because of this, we can now reduce our withdrawals from her TFSAs because she's got more money coming in until eventually, once she hits 72 years old, she's been forced to convert her RRSPs into a RIF, and she now has to take a mandated minimum withdrawal. And we can see that because she's allowed her RRSPs to grow over the last 15 years, her RRSP is quite big at that point. So if we take a look at what it's sitting at around age 70, she has about $3 million in her RRSPs. So her mandated withdrawal is going to be significant. And we can see here in her first year, she's having to take $173,000 out of her RIF at that point. This is on top of her CPP, old age security, and pension that's still coming in. So now her income tax bracket is jumping up substantially. So we can see this happening here where her income slowly builds over time, and then once those RIF withdrawals begin, she's now sitting in, we'll call it a 48% tax bracket. So lots of tax is going to the tax man, obviously, because she's making so much money. Now, the other problem with this scenario is, again, we're letting the registered accounts grow over the next 15 years, and then she's just taking out the minimum every year. And when we get to the plan's end, when she's 90, there is still $2 million sitting in her RRIF. Now, what happens at death is whatever's left in those registered accounts gets added to your final tax bill. So now she's having to add $2 million of income. And if we look at the Manitoba and federal tax brackets, this means that she's going to pay 50% tax on a big chunk of this withdrawal. So to summarize this first scenario, Sarah is in a really good position. She is in no danger of running out of money, and she can definitely spend more than what she's allocated thus far. Her plan is really good from a tax perspective over the first 15 years of retirement, as she keeps her tax bill low using her non-registered NTFSA account. However, once she's forced to convert her RRSP into a RRIF and those mandatory minimum withdrawals begin, her income shoots way up and she can essentially say goodbye to her old age security because she's in such a high tax bracket that it's going to get fully clawed back. On top of that, in this scenario, there is still quite a bit of money left in her registered accounts at age 90. So from an estate perspective, it all gets added to her taxable income in that year of death, and she's going to pay over 50% tax on a large chunk of it. I should also mention, in all the scenarios that I'm going to be looking at, we're using a rate of return of 5% in each account. Now, what's a better tax strategy that Sarah can implement? So when people realize how much tax they're going to end up paying at death, they take it to the other end of the spectrum and start drawing down their RRSPs way more aggressively. So how can you do that? Well, you want to keep your income low. So what you do is, instead of taking CPP and OAS at 60 and 65, you push both of them until age 70. So why do you do that? Well, in this scenario, that means that for the next 15 years, the only income that Sarah's going to have is going to be her pension, and then she can draw on her RRSPs while she's in a low bracket and to draw them down much quicker. So let's again take a look at the Manitoba and federal tax brackets, and I know we're looking at the 2025 brackets. I haven't updated to 2026 yet. That's on me, but it's not going to change the theory behind this example. So to draw down her RRSPs very aggressively, she can target an income of $177,000. So that's going to bring her marginal tax rate up to 43%. So in most people's minds, well, I'd rather pay 43% today than, as we just saw, she's being pushed into a high bracket when she starts her RRSP mandated withdrawals at age 72, so about 48%, and then paying 50% tax at death. So if I can draw down all of my RRSPs over the next, let's say, 10 to 15 years at the highest rate of 43%, what does that look like? So let's take a look at that scenario where we draw her income up to $177,000 and see how that improves the picture. So now we bring up our estate up to $4.98 million. So that's an improvement of almost $500,000 by drawing down the RRSPs more aggressively. So let's just explain what this $177,000 means. She has $40,000 of pension income, so she's withdrawing the difference between $177,000 and the $40,000 from her RRSPs. Now, obviously, she doesn't need all that RRSP money to live her life, so anything extra that she doesn't need to meet her expenses can be used to keep topping up her TFSAs, or it can get added to her non-registered account. Now, I know I always get this comment is this being factored in? And if you put in the money in the non-registered account that it gets taxed every year? It does. The system knows that the money is now in a non-registered account and she's having to pay yearly tax on the interest and dividends or any capital gains that she generates. So by making this change, we can see that her registered accounts are essentially completely gone by the time she turns 72 or 70, I should say. And at the plan's end, when she's 90, she's leaving $4.98 million. So like I said, $500,000 to the better by implementing this second strategy. So to summarize scenario 2, we're being a lot more aggressive with the RRSP withdrawals. And to do that, we're pushing out CPP and OAS to 70 to keep Sarah's income lower. And then that allows us to draw more from our RRSPs. So we're targeting an income of $177,000, which puts her in a marginal tax rate of 43%, which again is going to be a lot better than paying 48 or 50% down the road if she doesn't make any withdrawals at all. So by implementing this strategy, her net estate at age 90 is about $500,000 more. So in this final scenario, we're going to take a look at a happy medium strategy. So in scenario 1, there was essentially no registered withdrawals until the RRSP minimums began. In scenario 2, Sarah was very aggressive with her RRSP withdrawals, essentially emptying them out by the time she turned 70. And now in this final scenario, we're going to split the difference. So what we're going to do is we're still going to push out CPP and OAS because we do want to make RRSP withdrawals. And what we want to do is, instead of going up to $177,000 of income, let's go up to $100,000 instead. So she has $40,000 coming in from her pension in that first year of retirement. Let's take out an additional $60,000 from her RRSPs. That brings her up to $100,000 of taxable income. So we do that because this puts her at the maximum of a 33% marginal tax rate. So a lot lower than the 43% she was paying in scenario 2. Now, once CPP and OAS begin at age 70, we want to keep our income as low as possible or as close as possible to that Old Age Security Clawback so that she can receive it moving forward. Now, we can see that with this scenario, by making those withdrawals from now until she's forced to convert into a RRSP, her registered accounts are essentially staying the same. So they're still growing, but the withdrawals are kind of keeping the account at the same level. And then once she turns, again, 72, she's forced to make those withdrawals, and we can see that the registered account slowly gets dwindled down over time. Now, because of this, there's still going to be some money left in those registered accounts at age 90, about $1 million. But let's not forget that the provincial and federal tax brackets should go up with inflation as well. So the 50% tax bracket today starts at $400,000 in Manitoba. Now, if we fast forward 35 years, maybe that final tax bracket starts at $1 million when we factor in some inflation. I say should because they don't always get inflated up with inflation, unfortunately. Now, again, we're still leaving some money in registered accounts here from an estate perspective, which is all going to be taxed in 1 year. But because we're being more effective as far as drawing down those RRSPs early on in retirement, we're still in a position where we have a better net estate. So we're sitting now at $5.3 million net estate, even though there's still $1 million left in her RRSP at age 90. So scenario 1, we're at 4.52 million. Scenario 2, we're just under 5 million. And now scenario 3, we're sitting at 5.3 million. So from where she began to where we ended up, that's about an $800,000 difference. So having a solid withdrawal strategy in place can save you thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes along the way. Now, I can't stress enough that this isn't the right strategy for everyone. A lot of times people watch these types of videos and assume that this is the only way to do it. For some people, it does make sense to do a scenario 1 like Sarah was going through, to keep her withdrawals as low as possible throughout her whole life. And in other times, scenario 2 does make sense, where you should be drawing down those registered accounts as soon as possible. What's important is that you look at your own numbers. So if this is something that you're interested in, then check out our Atlas system. This is the exact process we go through with clients to figure out the optimal withdrawal strategy that they should be implementing in retirement. Check it out using the link in the description. But here's what you need to understand. Minimizing tax is just one part of retirement planning. The other big question is, how much income do you actually need to live the life that you want to live? So check out this next video where we go over what is required to live off $10,000 per month in Canada. We'll go over how much you need to have saved, where it needs to come from, and how to make it last throughout your retirement. Check it out right here.